It was late last night, the kind of quiet that settles over a house when the day has finally given up. I was on the couch, half asleep, the blue light of my phone illuminating the dark room as I went through my nightly ritual of responding to comments. It's a part of my day I genuinely value, a direct line to the community we've built here. I scrolled through hundreds of messages, offering clarifications, words of encouragement, and quick thank yous. But then, I came across a question from a viewer named Charles. On the surface, it was nothing out of the ordinary, a question I've seen and answered countless times, multiple times a week, in fact. It's a recurring theme in comment sections and a frequent topic in our live stream chats. Yet, for some reason, at that specific moment, Charles's inquiry struck a different chord. Something about the way he asked, or perhaps the sheer exhaustion of the late hour, triggered a light bulb moment for me. It was a sudden, piercing clarity that cut through the fog of my sleepiness. An idea took hold, a conviction that this particular topic deserved more than just another quick reply in a long thread of comments. It needed a dedicated, comprehensive discussion, because I realized that my ongoing message in videos and live streams, that on this specific issue, you are being lied to and the situation is not what it seems, needed to be laid out with absolute, undeniable clarity. I felt an urgent need to set the record straight, to explain exactly where we currently stand, what is truly going on, and what the future realistically holds for what has become one of the most persistent hopes and rumors of the year, the $5,000 Doge Dividend. This payment has been given many names: a rebate, a reimbursement, a stimulus, a surplus payment. The name, however, is irrelevant. It all traces back to the same origin, the $5,000 Doge Dividend, as it was first introduced to the public consciousness many months ago, back in the cold, early days of February. Let's take a moment and travel back together. Remember that day. It appeared seemingly out of nowhere, a random social media post that ignited a firestorm of speculation, a $5,000 Doge Dividend. Within a mere 24 hours, the narrative escalated dramatically. We saw Elon Musk publicly state, "I'll talk to the president." Shortly after, the president himself, in multiple public statements and interviews, began to reference the idea, speaking of considering a $5,000 distribution in the form of a dividend payment. The excitement at that time was palpable. It felt as though something monumental was on the verge of happening. Optimism surged through our community and across the nation. To see the President of the United States seemingly endorsing a $5,000 payment, call it a stimulus, a dividend, a check, it didn't matter, felt like a long-awaited acknowledgement of the financial struggles so many were facing. It was presented as a form of financial relief, a tangible return derived from projected savings from the newly formed Department of Government Efficiency, or Doge. We've discussed the intricate details many times since then, but the core premise was electrifying. The government would find massive savings, and a portion of that money would be returned directly to the people. The initial proposal was built on a truly staggering figure. The plan was predicated on Doge achieving an almost unbelievable $2 trillion in savings from rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse across the federal government. These savings would then be used to fund a one-time $5,000 payment to approximately 79 million American households. It was never intended to be $5,000 per person, but rather per household, a crucial distinction that was often lost in the initial excitement. Still, the prospect was tantalizing. It was a flicker of genuine possibility in a time of great economic uncertainty. However, as the months have ticked by since that initial flurry of activity in February, a different reality has begun to set in. As we've moved from spring into summer, and with each passing day, week, and month, the vibrant hope and optimistic dreams of a $5,000 payment miraculously appearing in our bank accounts have started to fade. The initial momentum has stalled, and the silence from official channels has grown louder than their early pronouncements. I am right there with you in feeling that sense of diminishing hope. I don't dismiss that feeling one bit. The slow passage of time has a way of eroding even the most fervent optimism, especially when it is met with inaction. This brings me back to the core purpose of this discussion, inspired by Charles's late-night question. I want to give it to you 100% straight, with no fluff, no sensationalism, just the unvarnished truth as I see it. The question I receive constantly is, when are we getting the $5,000 stimulus? When are we getting the Doge dividend? My answer, and I know this is going to be a deeply unpopular statement, is this: it is not happening. I will guarantee it, with 100% certainty. A $5,000 Doge dividend, or rebate, or payment, regardless of the fancy name it's given, is not coming. I recognize that this is not what many want to hear. Perhaps I should be like some others, dangling the carrot and acting as if the payment is coming tomorrow, or next week, or next month. But I have to ask myself, what purpose would that serve? To create false hope does not serve you, it does not serve me, and it certainly does not serve the general population. It helps no one. I will let others continue to make those claims if they so choose, but my commitment is to provide the honest, accurate truth and the full transparency behind this situation. The fundamental reason the Doge dividend will not materialize is a matter of simple, brutal mathematics and logistics. The entire premise was built on Doge saving $2 trillion. Let me be unequivocally clear, Doge is not going to save $2 trillion. Doge is not even going to save $1 trillion. In fact, I would be personally shocked if Doge manages to save even $500 billion. The timeline and the sheer scale of the task make it a virtual impossibility. We must remember that Doge has a limited lifespan. It is scheduled to be dissolved on July 4th of 2026. From its inception in January of 2025 until its dissolution, it will have been in existence for only about a year and a half. To find and realize trillions of dollars in savings from the deeply entrenched and complex machinery of the federal government within that short window is simply not a realistic expectation. Therefore, all the hopes, dreams, aspirations, and positivity surrounding a $5,000 Doge dividend must be respectfully laid to rest. It is definitely not happening. So, to Charles, thank you again for your comment. Something about its timing in the quiet of the night sparked this necessary conversation, a moment to finally set the record straight for everyone. Now, it is critically important to understand a key distinction here, because the death of the Doge dividend does not mean the death of all potential financial relief. The Doge dividend was never meant to be an economic stimulus. It was conceptualized as a refund, a rebate, a distribution, a profit share, a return of taxpayer dollars that were saved through efficiency. It was a backward-looking payment, a reward for fiscal prudence that had already occurred. An economic stimulus, on the other hand, is an entirely different animal. It is a forward-looking intervention. Stimulus payments are provided during times of major recession, economic contraction, or financial crisis. Their purpose is not to reward past savings, but to inject cash into a faltering economy to prevent a deeper collapse. This distinction is everything. The failure of Doge to generate massive savings has absolutely no bearing on whether the government might issue an economic stimulus payment. The two are governed by completely different sets of conditions. A stimulus payment is predicated entirely on the health of the economy. If the economy enters a significant downturn, a deep recession, a market meltdown, a period of massive job loss, that is when stimulus is provided. I have said this 1,000 times over the last 5 years. Stimulus follows economic pain. If the second half of this year turns into the real doom and gloom scenario that many economists and analysts have been warning about, with a cratering economy, plummeting markets, and soaring inflation fueled by global chaos and uncertainty, then the conditions for a stimulus would be met. In that situation, the government would provide a payment, not as a refund, but as a tool to jumpstart economic activity. They would give us money, be it $1,200, $1,400, or some other amount, with the explicit expectation that we will go out and spend it. They don't want us to save it, or hoard it, or pay down debt with it. They want us to buy goods and services, to purchase things we may not even need, because that consumption is what stimulates the economy and keeps businesses afloat. That possibility of a true economic stimulus, born from crisis, remains very much on the table. Am I guaranteeing it will happen? Absolutely not. But am I saying it's a distinct possibility if the economy takes a nosedive? Absolutely. In these times of profound financial uncertainty, where the promise of a government windfall has proven to be an illusion, focusing on what we can actually control becomes more important than ever. One of the most significant and often confusing expenses for millions, particularly for seniors, is healthcare. Navigating the world of Medicare, with its various parts, supplements, and advantage plans, can be a daunting task. Yet, optimizing your coverage can lead to substantial savings and significantly better care. A simple, short phone call to a trusted independent advisor could potentially save you a tremendous amount of money. The average senior who utilizes such a service saves over $1,100 annually. My personal motto in life has always been to ask, because you would be shocked at how often you will receive. Ask what better options are available. Ask what discounts you qualify for. Ask for a review of your current plan to see if it's still the best fit for you. We all have unique needs. My personal situation, for instance, requires specialized ophthalmology care. I am legally blind and need to see a retina specialist regularly, so my coverage must be tailored to that specific need. Your needs will be different from mine, and different from your neighbors. That is the entire point of having options. An insurance policy is there to protect us in our moments of need, and ensuring you have the right protection at the best price is a powerful act of financial self-preservation. So, as we move forward, let us do so with clear eyes, armed with honest information. Let us let go of the false hope of a Doge dividend that was never destined to arrive, and instead, focus our energy on strengthening our own financial foundations. Let's share this clear information with our friends, family members, and neighbors, so they too can operate from a place of reality, not rumor. We must navigate these uncertain times by focusing not on what we are promised, but on what we can achieve through our own prudent actions. In closing, the journey we have taken through the saga of the $5,000 Doge dividend leads us to a single, unequivocal conclusion. It is a promise that will not be kept. The initial spark of hope ignited in the cold of February, fanned by high-profile endorsements and official-sounding pronouncements, has slowly dwindled into the quiet reality of the present. The late-night question posed by Charles served as a catalyst, a moment of clarity that underscored the urgent need to replace speculation with certainty and to dismantle a narrative of false hope that has persisted for far too long. The unvarnished truth, stripped of all sensationalism, is that the prospect of a $5,000 payment derived from the savings of the Department of Government Efficiency is not a fading possibility. It is a mathematical and logistical impossibility. The entire premise was built upon the Herculean task of Doge saving an unprecedented $2 trillion from the vast and complex machinery of the federal government. This was to be accomplished within a severely limited time frame, as Doge itself is a temporary entity scheduled for dissolution in mid-2026. To believe that such monumental savings could be identified, realized, and redistributed in such a short period is to ignore the deeply entrenched nature of governmental operations. Therefore, the dream of the dividend, a concept that brought so much excitement to millions, must be respectfully but firmly laid to rest. It is not happening, and continuing to wait for it is a passive act that only serves to delay proactive engagement with one's own financial reality. However, the definitive end of the Doge dividend narrative is not the end of the entire story. It is crucial to draw a sharp distinction between the specific, defunct proposal and the entirely separate concept of a true economic stimulus. The dividend was envisioned as a refund, a reward for past fiscal prudence. An economic stimulus, conversely, is a reactive measure, a financial tool deployed by the government in direct response to a severe economic crisis. It is not a reward for savings. It is an emergency injection of capital designed to avert a deeper recession, stimulate consumer spending, and stabilize a faltering economy. Therefore, while the door on the Doge dividend is firmly closed, the door for a potential stimulus payment remains ajar, its opening contingent entirely on the economic health of the nation. Should the latter half of the year bring the significant downturn that many economists fear, a period marked by job losses, market instability, and widespread financial hardship, the conditions for a stimulus would be met. This is not a guarantee, but a clarification of the mechanics at play. Our focus should shift from the phantom dividend to the real economic indicators that would precede any such government intervention. Ultimately, this entire episode serves as a powerful lesson in financial and informational literacy. It highlights the corrosive effect of false hope and the danger of building one's financial plans on the unstable ground of online rumor and political rhetoric. The most valuable takeaway is the reinforcement of a timeless principle. We must focus our energy and attention on the things we can directly control. Instead of passively waiting for a miraculous payment that will never arrive, we can take proactive steps to fortify our own financial positions. This is where tangible actions, such as meticulously reviewing one's Medicare coverage, become not just practical advice but a philosophical counterpoint to the dividend saga. While the $5,000 payment was a mirage, the potential savings from optimizing a healthcare plan are real, achievable, and can amount to over $1,000 a year for the average person. It is an act of taking control, of asking the right questions, and of seeking out real-world solutions rather than chasing digital ghosts. It is about understanding your own unique needs and finding the best tools to meet them, a process that builds genuine security far more effectively than any unfulfilled promise. In conclusion, let us move forward from this conversation with clarity and resolve. The era of ambiguity surrounding the Doge dividend is over. We can now channel our collective energy away from a source of disappointment and toward actions that yield real, tangible benefits. By choosing reality over rumor, action over anxiety, and community through shared, honest information, we empower ourselves to navigate these uncertain times not as passive spectators, but as the active architects of our own financial well-being.